So much to talk about today and so little time, but you got to stay with us.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. And, thanks for making this your first listen or second or third. I don't care when you listen to us. Just listen to us and subscribe. So we appreciate you guys a ton. Lots going on right now, Jimmy. We'll get to the countdown in the second two segments. But, first of all, it's hard to even figure out where to start. But I'm going to start with Keelon Russell making moves out at the Elite 11. I'm going to read something to you from Andrew Evans, who now he's with 24/7. I'll give him credit. He's not with On3, but I just found this post interesting. He said, this is a tweet, so it's not privileged info. Some initial thoughts from the opening workout at Elite 11 finals. Tavian St. Clair and Keelon Russell are the best of the bunch. Both made it look easy. Husan Longstreet's arm is on another level. And solid sessions from Ryan Montgomery, who by the way, Longstreet's committed to A&M. Ryan Montgomery, who's committed to Georgia. Tramel Jones, I think, committed to Florida State. And KJ Lacey, I believe, to Texas. And he said flashes from Matt Zollers to Missouri and Ty Hawkins, Deuce Knight, and Julian Lewis got hot late. I find that pretty incredible. And I'm going to tell you something. At this point, I'm going to be disappointed if Keelon Russell doesn't get bumped up to a 5-star.
He might. The thing that impresses me, whether it's a 247 guy or anyone, is that if you take into account what this guy said from 24/7 and what Charles Power and the On3 people have said, and the way that the Elite 11 coaches themselves ranked the kids after day one, there's no question that Tavian St. Clair and Keelon Russell are the two most talked about quarterbacks of the event, which is amazing. Now, it's a little early. The final rankings aren't in. You got to wait till all 3 days, and then we'll see where they fall. I think Luke could be right. I don't know about 5-star. That could happen. But Keelon Russell started out pretty high, the number 8 quarterback in the nation. He's going to move up. And how many quarterbacks should be 5-stars? The top 5? I think that's fair, right? Maybe in that range. Might change a little bit year to year. But just saying, I'm really impressed but not shocked because we've been very high on Keelon Russell. We've comped him to Jaden Daniels. I mean, Jaden was pretty good. Y'all might have seen that. Jaden had a dominant Heisman winning season and absolutely deserved it unanimously as far as I'm concerned, and then was the number 2 pick in the NFL draft. And by the way, on SportsCenter tonight, they talked about how he's been very impressive in Washington Commanders early, OTAs or whatever they call them. So I'm knocked out by Keelon Russell. My buddy Tim Watts was high on Keelon Russell before anyone else was. Before his name was heavily associated with Alabama, Tim Watts was like, this kid, Keelon Russell from Texas, is really good. I don't know if he's going to end up at Alabama or involved with Alabama, but he's good. So shout out to him for in terms of just one of the dudes that saw it first. But what a player. And Elite 11 is a great proving ground, Luke, for the best quarterbacks in the country. It's a proving ground.
All right, so let's talk about some of the guys coming in this weekend. It's another big weekend. Khalid Lockett was here, and I mean, he gave some, he gave glowing remarks, but it wasn't anything like he committed. Keelon Russell did tweet at him a few times, and all that's great stuff. You can read between the lines if you want to. I'm not gonna. I feel like, anyway, I'm hopeful for him, but I'm not expecting it. But this weekend, a whole nother list of dudes coming into Alabama, and it's not going to shock me if we get a commitment or two.
Well, I think we've gotten about 2 commitments just immediately following weekends. Seems to be the average that 2 guys bust, really quickly Monday and Tuesdays after the visit weekends. And Luke, this weekend, there's 12 guys right now scheduled. This is not an exaggeration at all. This is just a spot on, just a statement of fact. Is what this is. Not opinion. This is a fact. Nick Saban's the greatest recruiter of all time, the greatest coach of all time, and Alabama recruited better than anyone ever has in the history of college football during his tenure. Yet, I don't know during his tenure that there was an official visit weekend any more loaded than this upcoming weekend at Alabama. I mean, there might have been some Saban official visit weekends as loaded, but just no way it was any more loaded. I mean, this is just inconceivable. The talent that will be on Alabama's campus on Saturday with these 12 guys coming in. A couple of them are committed to Alabama, like Luke Metz and Abdul Sanders, but Derek Meadows from Vegas, the receiver, Caleb Cunningham, another receiver, Justice Terry, maybe the best defensive lineman in America, 5-star from the state of Georgia. He'll be there this weekend. Ty Jackson, in my mind, the number one linebacker, the number one off-ball linebacker in the entire country. He'll be there this weekend. Josiah Sharma, the defensive lineman we've been talking about for months, one of the best defensive linemen in the country. He'll be there. Micah Debose, high priority offensive lineman. All we got to do to get Debose, Luke, is beat Ohio State, Georgia, and LSU. That's all we got to do to get Debose. That's how good that kid is. He's takes, by the way, for all of those places. Just an unbelievable group. And there's more than that. That was just, I forgot 5-star Dijon Lee, probably an Alabama lean mustard man, as I call him. I'm sure I'm very original with that first name Dijon, but great 5-star type prospect and an Alabama lean. I think he's just coming off a Georgia trip. Probably, how about this? A California 5-star who's going to decide between Alabama and Georgia. All of those kids are here in a single weekend. And on top of it all, Luke, they're having the last camp of the year on Saturday, and a ton of kids will be in town for that camp. And I'm talking about some kids that they're going to make decisions on, Saturday. I mean, are they good enough? Also want to throw out Floyd Bocart's going to come into town, the Canadian defensive lineman who played his junior year at Mobile Christian. He's playing his senior year in Miami.
Dude.
Yeah, Bocart. He'll be in town this weekend too. Crazy.
He's a dude. I'm telling you, I got to call him.
Yeah.
He's a dude.
Yeah, good player, very athletic. But boy, Alabama's doing well on that defensive line, and they're getting to the point where they're going to have to make decisions about some of these defensive linemen and who's going to have a spot and who isn't. I know people say, "What do you mean spots?" And there's no rules. There's no. Of course there is, and 85 is still a rule as of right now. And regardless, even if you could sign 110, it'd be dumb because if some kid is the 6th team at his position, he's going to leave the moment the portal opens. So really, 85 is not just a rule. 85 is a good idea. I mean, you can't just bury kids on the depth chart and expect them to stick around. And of course, we're a year away from having roster limits, which is a whole nother show. We'll see that'll end all this. Is he a take? I mean, it's gonna really add a new layer to the roster management, right? Because there's no more creative math. Remember Saban's creative math, the math that didn't math, and hey, maybe he'll walk on even though he's scholarship worthy, or maybe he's on NIL scholarship. All that will end with the roster limit rule that's coming. There will be about 90 kids on your roster, and that will be that. There will not be an exception of any kind for kid number 91. There'll be 90, and that's it.
Lord Jimmy, the times, they're getting crazy. But you know what's not getting crazy is your countdown, and that's where we're going next. Or maybe your countdown is crazy, but you know who's not crazy? eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors got you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for, and with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, you're not burning cash, yo. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home that big old win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions. Yeah, they apply. And eBay Guaranteed Fit is only, of course, available to you as customers. One other note that has not much to do with Bama, but did you see Florida's commitment? That super tall kid for next year, I think, not this coming year, maybe the next year. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Olivia Rio or something. He's 7'9", Jimmy. And like I've seen the highlights. He plays at IMG. He was 7'5" when he committed, and he's grown 4 inches since then. He's 7'9". I mean, like I just watched highlights. He just catches the ball and just puts it in. I mean, he just is crazy. But anyway,
is he skilled in any way? You know what I'm saying? I mean,
he's skilled enough. He looks better than he looks more skilled than he looks thicker too than Sean Bradley did. But can you guard the three, bruh? Because that's what we're gonna be shooting right in your grill. How about that?
I wonder how many times he's going to be called for he's going to be called for goaltending. I wonder if he's going to be called for goaltending on threes. You know what I mean? Like right at the rim where he just can't help himself.
Yeah.
He just can't help himself but swat away 3-point shots right at the rim. I mean, that's hey, I tell you, Mark Sears. Mark Sears is about the gutsiest lane driver I've ever seen. I bet Sears goes right at him. Of course, Sears won't ever be on the court with him, right? Isn't this guy at 25?
Yeah.
So Sears won't be on the court with him.
He's not going to be there next year. I think it's year after next. So he probably won't be there at all. But
our man LeBaron Philon's going to have to deal with this dude.
He'll get him. Yeah. Okay. So, Jimmy, let's get into back to the countdown. Jiren Hamilton, interesting, and also extremely interesting. He's this high. He's ahead of people like Kon Russell and King Mack. I mean, he's ahead of some people that I would say, okay, if I were ranking him, I don't know that I could put him ahead of them, but you have him there. Explain yourself.
Because in the spring, you played with the ones. None of those other guys did that you just named, even though they're good players. Now, of course, at wide receiver, you play more guys. I mean, you just play more guys. This ranking is about who are the best players on the team this fall. So I'm really, in terms of who's ranked here, the kids I expect to see every Saturday. If I'm not going to see you on Saturday, you're not going to be very highly ranked. But Jaren Hamilton this spring spent, I would say, based on what we know, fairly significant time with the ones. As I explained it on BOL today, look, I divide the wide receivers into three groups. There's 11 that we have that will play because, as Jalen Hale, we discussed very early in the countdown, as an almost certain red shirt and may or may not see any action at all due to the injury. So there's 11 other wide receivers on scholarship. I have them in three groups, Luke. The first group, in my mind, are the slam dunk dudes that are going to play. The slam dunks. That's Jeremy Bernard, Kobe Prentice, and Kendrick Law. They may not be 1, 2, and 3, but those guys are going to play with the first team because they've been a first-team player for more than 1 year at where they play. They've been first-team players their entire careers. At both at Alabama and then with Bernard at Washington and Michigan State. So they're going to be with the first team, no question. Tier 2 is complicated. I have several guys here in Tier 2, Luke. I have Ryan Williams. I have Emmanuel Henderson. I have Jaren Hamilton, who we're talking about today. I have Cole Adams, and I have Caleb Odom. That's 5 guys. So if you add those 5 to the 3 that we've already named, that's 8. Are all 8 guys going to make up the first team rotation? I don't know. That seems like too many. So for Jiren Hamilton to play significant snaps, Luke, he has to prove himself at the top of that list, right? He doesn't have to beat out Law, Prentice, Bernard. That's not going to happen. But is he going to get significant snaps because he's ahead of E-Man, Henderson? Is he going to be ahead of Ryan Williams? Is he going to be ahead of Cole Adams and Caleb Odom? I don't know. I'm up for, hey, anyone can have an opinion about that group to me because I would hate to bet on who's going to be number 1 out of that 5-man group. I think it'll be Ryan Williams. I know you think it'll be Ryan Williams. I do too. But it's not about who's going to be number 1 in that group. It's really about also who's going to be number 5 in that group. In my mind, it's Caleb Odom. You thought Caleb would be higher. And I don't disagree with, I'm not saying that's a bad take at all. It's a good I don't know. I just think that group, to me, is very hard to distinguish. The 3 at the bottom for me in Tier 3 I have are true freshmen Amari Jefferson, Bubba Hampton, and Rico Scott. I think they're all really good players. I just think for this fall, they appear to be squeezed out a little bit. That's my take. They have fall camp to prove me wrong, to prove that wrong. But to me, those 3 are at the bottom end just solely based on the fact they're true freshmen. And, I think Amari wasn't even here this spring.
All true. And I know there are going to be some people out there that love him. It's a tough call because do you take either devil you don't know? Because, frankly, Jaren Hamilton's been here a little more, but we don't know. Right. And I guess call me one of the guys that's been suckered in to buy into more of a Caleb Odom hype. But Jaren Hamilton is really good. He's very speedy.
His nickname's Turbo.
Yeah. And so maybe those two should be tied, because I think Caleb Odom's going to be more of a go up and get it, and Jiren Hamilton's going to be go and get it.
That's great. And for a kid who's nicknamed Turbo, when I say, look, we have another kid named Turbo that's on the way, right? 2025, Anthony Rogers. Yeah, that Turbo is like 5'9", 185. I think when you say, hey, this kid's nickname is Turbo, I think your mind automatically goes to small and super fast. Jiren Hamilton is 6'1", 200.
Yeah, he's big.
With a nickname of Turbo. I mean, so that's a bigger kid to be known as a speed receiver. And I looked up some numbers on him. He only played half his senior season because he was hurt. And I think that hurt his recruiting a little bit, and why he didn't have a ton of big-time offers, although he had a small handful of good ones. But his junior and senior year, Luke, and you're better at math than me, everyone is, over 2 seasons, he had 44 catches for 1,100 yards.
Wow.
That is a whopping yard per catch number over 2 years and 44 catches.
It's difficult to do that because you have to. I mean, that means you had a lot of deep balls. Your offense has to start deep in its own territory several times for those kind of stats.
That's around 25 yards a catch, I think, over 2 years and 44.
Think about it this way, Jimmy.
That's a stunning number.
If you have just 4 catches that go for no or 1 yard or something, you've got to have like several 80-yarders to make the average go to 25. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, just
you're
imagine
going to have some 5 and 7 yarders or whatever. But I mean,
if I told you a kid had 4 catches for 100 yards, you'd be like, "Oh, pretty good game. 4 catches, 100 yards." Okay, he did that 11 times.
Yeah.
Times that by 11. That's exactly his numbers. 44 catches, 1,100 yards. So he had 4 catches for 100 yards 11 times, if you want to look at it that way. I'm sure that's not exactly the situation, but it's a great way to explain.
That'd be so weird if that was exactly the situation.
Boy, that's some pretty poor defense when you allow the exact same numbers every single week. That's some DCs that shouldn't be high school football coaches. They should be the pickleball coaches. Is there high school
Alabama
pickleball
related, but not Jaren Hamilton related. I was on Locked On Falcons the other day to talk about Jason McClellan, and I sort of did a refresher on him. Do you know in high school he scored 122 touchdowns?
Really? I'm not surprised.
That is bananas.
That is a bananas number. And I'm not. I made a mistake and said on BOL the other day, Luke, that Jace McClellan was the most underrated kid in the draft. What I meant was he was the most underrated kid in the Alabama contingent in the draft. And I really believe that. Now, first of all, watch him get cut in camp because he's hurt. He
has signed a contract, by the way.
Has not?
He has.
He has. Good. I think if he's 100% healthy, he not only makes the Falcons, he becomes a significant player, or as significant as you can be when the number 1 running back on your team is Bijan Robinson.
That's what I told him. I said, look here, he's not Bijan Robinson. In fact, I said, if you were making a list of the top 10 running backs of the Saban era, I'm not sure he makes the list. He might crack number 10 or number 9, maybe, but he never rushed for 1,000 yards. But I said, you know what? If none of those other guys were here, now this is a kind of a crappy way to say it, but when you're stacked up against Derrick Henry, Trent Richardson, Mark Ingram, TJ Yeldon, Najee Harris, Eddie Lacy. I mean, it's
even B-Rob.
I said, here's the thing though. If you had all these top 3 categories like best receiver, toughest runner, best nose for the end zone, best blocker. I said, if you had like a top 5 list of all those, he'd probably make the top 5 of all those, but it still wouldn't put him in the top 10. You know what I mean? Like receiver is look, I don't want to get off on Jason McClellan because we got to go to break, but so go check out Locked On Falcons where I talked about it.
Hey, here's a good point too about to me. Reimagine Jace's career with 2 factors change. All we're changing is 2 factors about Jace. He's completely healthy the whole time, and he's not playing behind Alabama's 2021, 2022, and 2023 offensive lines. He's playing behind the 2020 offensive line and everything. He played behind the worst 3-year offensive line. I mean, that's probably the worst 3-year stretch of Saban's offensive line. They weren't terrible. We over-exaggerate how bad they were. I'm just saying.
They were terrible Saban standards.
Exactly. And I'm saying those other backs that you just named, those great backs, they got to play behind those offensive lines. And
think about this. Think about it. think about how he would have been if he hadn't been behind Najee Harris in 2020 and Jahmyr Gibbs in 21. I mean, and didn't have to split carries with Roy Dell. Who knows? But we got to go to break, so that's what we're going to do. So next on the list is an interesting addition, Gino Vandermark.
Cool name, and it sort of sounds like a European count.
He really does. That's why I said it that way. I mean, it sort of rolls off the tongue like royalty.
It is sort of like a high.
The Vandermarks are here, so I hope that's what they do. Like if he scores, Vandermark with the exclamation point or something, something like that. That's not very good.
Yeah,
that's almost as good as you
marry somebody. You should marry somebody like Lovey Howell on the Gilligan's Island.
Well, tell us about him, because frankly, being European royalty, I'm not sure I know a lot.
Yeah, he's probably one of the lesser known players on the roster here. I have him here, at 44, which means, that's pretty high. And I think
it's really high, Jimmy.
I'm projecting him really as the 6th or 7th lineman. And as much as you say, well, what does that mean? Well, you try to play the season with 5 offensive linemen. Let's say that the starters are Proctor and Pritchett at right tackle, and Booker and Jaden Roberts at guard, and Parker Brailsford at center. The odds that all 5 remain healthy all year are just not good. You need, who's first off the bench? At tackle, it's probably going to be Formby, or Formby wins right tackle and the first off the bench is Pritchett. It's going to go that way. But on the interior, 2 guard spots and the center spot, Gino Vandermark is almost certainly going to be first off the bench. And like I said, the idea that you can keep Booker, Roberts, and Brailsford, those 3, completely healthy all season long, the odds aren't good. So you got to have somebody off the bench who's experienced and who you trust. And here's a kid that started, off the top of my head, he started 6 games at Michigan State. That is the Big Ten. That's big-time football. He played under Coach Cap. To me, the ringing endorsement here, Luke, is I think we're all pretty excited about what we've seen from Coach Cap so far. And Coach Cap, this kid has his stamp of approval. Coach Cap coached him at Michigan State and wanted him to come to Alabama, where he knows, hey, it's a bigger deal here. It's the SEC. Things are a little tougher here, but this is a kid I want with me. And he knows him. We don't know him as Alabama fans, but Coach Cap knows him and he wants him here. To me, that in and of itself says a lot. So I'm excited about him. Again, this is a kid with center guard versatility. He can play center. He can play guard. As we know, Parker Brailsford missed some of the spring. I'm told not to worry about that, and that he'll be fine this fall and he'll be out there this fall. I'm told not to worry. But at the same token, he did miss time this spring. So I'm really curious, who's the number 2 center? And it is going to be, in my opinion, Gino Vandermark. And that's why he's up here, because we're getting to the part of the rankings, Luke, where these kids are going to play. And obviously, if he's this solidly entrenched as a 2, most weeks Alabama's going to win comfortably and play the 2s late in games. So we're going to see Gino Vandermark every week. And when Booker and Roberts move on to the NFL, Gino Vandermark might be next in line to be a starting guard at Alabama as soon as next season. So this is a significant player.
I think it is. Happy to have him. Happy to have any depth right there. Jimmy, is it just me, or I talked to somebody else. I was walking into Sports Blitz Live last night, the show I do on Tuesday nights, and another Alabama fan. He said, man, I feel different. He said, I really felt like that I would be not dreading the season, but very concerned, Saban retiring and all these things. And he said, I feel rejuvenated. And I was like, yeah, I kind of get that. I mean, the recruiting news, the way that Kalen DeBoer is recruiting, and he's doing this without being like incredibly in the spotlight. It's not like we hear about Kalen DeBoer every single night. I think this transition, knock on wood, is going as smoothly as it could possibly go, where Saban is slowly backing out. Now, what Saban did the other day, by the way, I should note this. I don't know if I talked to you about it, but Saban, the young lady, Lulu, here in Mountain Brook that had her arm and leg taken by a shark at I think 30A, maybe a week and a half ago or something. And boy, that hit sort of close to home because I live in Mountain Brook. I know some people that know her, and she's just a wonderful human being. And Saban did, and Nate Oates too, and DeBoer, I believe. I think they all did a little video tribute to her, like a sort of a TikTok thing directed to her or whatever. And I thought, this, that's cool that Saban's doing that. He's still Nick Saban, right? And DeBoer did one too, I believe, but and Nate Oates. But it made me think, like, I'm not seeing it's not like I'm seeing all this, Saban's not here, so what's happening? Or Kalen DeBoer is here and he's doing all this different. I'm not hearing much out of either the former head coach or the current head coach, but things are going so smoothly. It's like they're sort of behind the scenes letting Courtney Morgan, has been more vocal and more talked about, I think, than DeBoer or Saban lately. He's been on Twitter with the little freeze emoji, cold summer or whatever. It just seems like things are, it's moving slowly into this nice transition that I never thought would happen this easily.
Well, this is my take, and this could be really wrong. And someone from inside the program might text me after this and say, boy, you could not have been more wrong on your take. But this is my take, from looking inside the wall to explain what Luke just said, because I agree exactly with what Luke said. And this is why I think it's that way. When Nick Saban was the head coach, Saban had his hands on everything. It was all Saban. Saban was he is probably the quintessential, hey, if you want it done right, do it yourself. That is Nick Saban. He's at every meeting. He's running the show. He's approving every offer. He's approving every take, every decision. Nick Saban, no one wanted to do anything significant without running it by Nick. I mean, it was Nick's program. Nick Saban's, he wasn't the face of the program because he preferred the players to take a lot of, but as far as the staff, what Saban didn't let the assistants talk to the media. There was one voice of Alabama football during the Saban era, and it was Nick Saban's voice. He was Alabama football. Kalen DeBoer does things completely differently. I'm going to call him the great delegator. I don't like how that sounds because it makes it sound like he doesn't do anything. He just sits back and says, hey, you guys go do it. That's not what I mean at all. That's zero of what I mean. But what I mean by that is DeBoer's hired these people that he believes in and trusts in, and they're all the voice of Alabama football. That's why they all do interviews. That's why they're all tweeting. That's why Courtney Morgan is tweeting a storm. The support staff guys tweet a lot. That didn't happen under Saban at all. The support staff guys do interviews. The assistant coaches are, I'm just saying, under Kalen DeBoer, it really feels like a group effort headed by DeBoer, whereas Saban was the face of the program, the one voice. I think Saban had even said that before. I want there to be one voice speaking for this program, and it's mine. And that was just Saban's way of exerting control over all of it. DeBoer is just more like, this is I hired this big staff, and this is a group effort, but it's highly organized, and clearly it's working. It's good proof, Luke, that, hey, Saban's the best recruiter it's ever been, and we see what Kalen DeBoer is doing in recruiting. It doesn't prove that one is this way to do it's better than the other way. It's just proof that there's more than one way to do this. There's more than one way to do it well. And we're seeing the results of that right now. And this weekend, these 12 guys coming in, Luke, again, it looks no different or no worse than any Saban official visit weekend in terms of the number of highly recruited, great prospects that will all be in town on the final visit weekend of the summer. Dead period starts very soon, and there will be no more official visits until the season starts.
That's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back soon. Probably Friday, but we don't know. We'll see. Maybe. Who knows? We're kind of crazy. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.